Hello?
Welcome to the official Unofficial Sea Thieves podcast, a podcast dedicated to Sea Thieves and other rare games, but mainly Sea Thieves. Today we are discussing Adventure 8, the Herald of the Flame. This adventure is both a follow-up to the last adventure, but more so a follow-up to the Heart of Fire Talltale. We have been waiting for almost 3 years to get this resolution, but is this the adventure we deserve, or does it still disappoint? The community seems to be pretty opinionated about this subject, and we are no different. And with we, I mean me and my wonderful co-host.
Hello, guys. This is AShinyRay. It's been a while since we've had a podcast, at least. It's been like a month, hasn't it? Something like that, probably more.
Feels like that. Like our last podcast was with Mike, right?
Yeah, that feels like ages ago. When was that? Like September? October?
Such a big milestone for the channel, and it's like, oh, when was that? Can't remember. Whatever. Who is this Mike guy, anyways?
I've just been so busy recently, and I've barely touched Sea of Thieves. Not because I don't like it, guys. Not because I don't like it. It's just that, yeah, I've been busy with channel and other things. So, yeah, that feels like a world away now.
Yeah, it does. I mean, are you still ready? Are you in the groove to discuss stuff?
I'm excited about Sea of Thieves. I'm always excited to talk Sea of Thieves. So,
All right, that's great.
I don't know if that's a very good litmus test whether the game's popping off or not. I'm always excited to talk about Sea of Thieves.
Great. But before we do that, I'm going to remind all listeners that they can financially support this channel, because keeping this podcast alive is costing us more than we gain. So if you want to support us, the best way is using super thanks. But if you want something in return, you can also buy our podcast poster. And hopefully the link will be in the comment, like the pinned comment above. So if you want to buy a poster, you can click on that, and you will also support us. So if you can, please do so. I mean, we are going to have the link ready, right?
It should be ready, yes.
All right. Okay, great. Don't want to disappoint people. Not again.
Just waiting in pure silence. Hopefully he would forget that I haven't uploaded the link yet. But,
All right. So let's get into the main discussion. And before we really start discussing, I'm just going to give a quick summary, because I always do. So this adventure, it starts like usual with Lorena asking for our help. She tells us to meet up with Belle. We travel to Liar's Backbone. We meet up with Belle. She tells us she read the prophecies proclaiming Flameheart's return. These were written down by Stitcher Jim, and she suspects him of being the Herald of the Flame. The Herald of the Flame is the person who precedes the actual resurrection, but she is not sure. So we are sent to investigate his last known location, which is on Devil's Thirst, where he was also betrayed by Flameheart, who tricked him in becoming an Ashen Lord. And these events happened in the Heart of Fire Talltale. Once we arrive at the island, we meet up with Pendragon, who gives us a lantern to search for the two-year-old visions of Jim. These eventually lead us to Ashen Reaches, where Jim was hiding in a gold hoarder vault. There we also learn he turned his back on Flameheart and wants to grind Flameheart's bones to dust to further prevent his resurrection. I mean, so far so good. That's what we want, or at least the Athena guys want. But when we arrive at Flintlock Peninsula, we discover yet another vision to learn that Jim switched sides again. The Servant of the Flame gives him a mysterious drink to fully complete Jim's curse, and Jim stitches Flameheart together again in preparation for the final ritual. This ritual is happening on Molten Sands Fortress, where we fight the fully transformed Jim. Sadly, this fight is over before it even began, at least for us. And when we walk in the vault, we meet up with Pendragon again, who destroys Flameheart's skull for the second time. Then we go to Belle, and she seems very happy, very pleased for the service we have done to the Sea of Thieves, but alas, it isn't meant to be, since Pendragon appears and informs us both Stitcher Jim and the remains of Flameheart got away when he wasn't looking. My personal lore explanation is that he was fooling around with the daughter of Richard Cavendish to calm his nerves, but whatever. Either way, the battle is done, and Flameheart's resurrection might still be happening during the time of resurrection, which is also during the Festival of the Damned. So, did I miss anything in my summary?
The sailing was a bit annoying in this one. Not as bad as Adventure 5, but there was a lot of sailing.
All right, yeah, yes, like, complaining about sailing time is definitely something you want in the summary. So, thanks for that.
You didn't say
But
the word sail a lot. Like, we sail, we sail, we sail. There's 4 times, I think, we have to sail somewhere, just twiddling our thumbs.
yeah, but was it really annoying? I thought it wasn't that bad. Only when we learn, only when we need to return to Belle again. It's like, all right, can't Belle just pop up with her buoy? I mean,
Hmm.
do we need to sail back to Liar's Backbone? All the rest of the setting was just fine to me.
So bloody lazy. Yeah, to be fair, when you're going down to Ashen Reaches, it isn't too bad, but um, yeah, it could be worse. It could be worse.
No, but overall, did we like this adventure?
Yeah, I did like this adventure. It wasn't exactly what I expected, and we'll get to it shortly, but there was a bit in there that really disappointed me. But
Mm.
yeah, like I just kind of wish it was a tall tale, to be honest with you. It's worth another replay.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot. And I can get that sentiment because we were waiting for this for 2.5 years, right? It was the most requested Tall Tale ever. Um, and they decided to make it into adventure. I still really like the adventure. Like, we wanted to know, what happened to City Jim after the events of Heart of Fire, and we got exactly that. And I also like, interacting with all the visions. And it ended with, well, it ended in disappointment, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. But overall, it gave me what I expected. Yeah.
Just seems really weird how this was the, I guess, conclusion to those two tall tales, and you can tell it hasn't been written 2.5 years ago, but because obviously
Mm.
adventures have changed from tall tales, etc. But the way it's paced is just like it's a mix of the first two tall tales. And I'm sure Rare had this fantastic arc story planned for Flameheart, but Pirate's Life made its way, and then they realized like we need to progress the story because that's what we think people want.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah. So if they kept to their original idea, that wouldn't have worked because the story already progressed by that time.
yeah, like imagine if you finished Heart of Fire and then say 4 months later they had Herald of the Flames, let's say, as a tall tale,
Hmm.
and it literally was just how we saw it, maybe with a bit more jazz, a bit more intricate puzzles, or a better boss fight. It would have just not really made sense.
Hmm. Well, you say 4 months. I think that's not a long wait for a tall tale.
Well, it was what 4 months between Seabound Soul and Heart of Fire.
Yeah. So if it was a similar story, I would have been fine with it, to be honest.
I don't think retreading previous tall tales 4 months after you've just done them would make sense in the context of
Mm.
how you pace a tall tale, especially when you consider the Shores of Gold and how intricate that was. But it's ifs and buts, and we're never going to know how it would have turned out if Pirate's Life didn't exist.
Yeah, I guess you got a point because it isn't that spectacular. It's like you can feel it in yourself what the adventure would be
Hmm.
without having played it, you know?
Hmm. Exactly.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. That's a good point. So was this the right follow-up to Heart of Fire, you feel, or no?
In the context of how the story is at the moment and how long we've had to wait for it, yes, but also there's some bits that are not really well done in there, but I don't know if we should talk about that right now.
Hmm. Yeah, no, we can. Let's keep it free floating.
It's just the ending for me where Jim, like in the context again of those two tall tales, then Herald of the Flame comes out. Jim gets turned into an Ashen Lord. He gets convinced that Flameheart's a prophecy. We go and kill Jim, or the Herald of the Flame as he is now, and then we stop Flameheart from resurrecting again, and then it just goes back to, oh no, we actually didn't stop them. We didn't finish the job, and now he still could be resurrected. Like that would be really bad in terms of like, say that was a third tall tale in the
Mm.
arc of 9. That would be horrendous storytelling.
Yeah, that's true. Because at the end of Sivan's Soul, Flamer's skull is destroyed, and two tall tales later, it would have been destroyed again, and
Hmm.
that's just bad storytelling.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
weird. it's better in the context of us having to wait for 2.5 years, but also it still could have been improved upon.
Yeah, that's true. I still felt disappointed by that aspect of the story, by the way. We've waited so long for Stitcher Jim to see his character evolve, and I always thought he was going to be redeemed. I always thought he had a redemption story. It seemed so natural. But what happens is we wait this very long time. We get a glimpse of him turning his back on Flameheart, but that only lasts for, a couple of visions and one journal. And after that, he's back to the Jim we knew before, like he was, at the start of Heart of Fire. And also, that skull, yeah, the skull is repaired and then destroyed again. So those are really elements of the story that are a bit disappointing.
I feel like they could have strung that out a bit longer, maybe introducing Jim over the course of an arc, and the finale being him sort of throwing his hat in again with Flameheart because of the prophecy, and sort of the Servant of the Flame basically telling him how important he is. But to do that in one adventure, it feels poorly paced, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. So what would have been more interesting to you? That he switched sides and he was actually against Flameheart this time in in this adventure, or that his curse took hold over him, so he was becoming an Ashen Lord but against his wishes.
I,
What is more interesting to you?
I think that sort of speaks to so much of go on a little bit of a tangent here, but with Wanda, she broke her thrall to Flameheart basically because she rejected her. He rejected her, and
Mm-hmm.
that's testament to Wanda's character and how strong she is as a person. And going back to what Mike said about the skeleton curse, if you're a strong individual, the skeleton curse sort of molds its being around you and your qualities. So her becoming a skeleton lord sort of makes sense, and having the strength to reject Flameheart. But with Jim, he's not strong he's not a strong character. He's conniving and he's wicked and he's devious and he's Stitcher Jim, isn't he? So
Mm-hmm.
when Flameheart gets his claws in and transforms him into an Ashen Lord or starts that process, it's almost like Harry Hartley where he latches onto that part of someone, and when he gets his claws in, if you don't have the strength of character to buck that away, then
Mm-hmm.
you're part of him. And that can be any sort of thing that you can prey on. And I think it really suits Stitcher Jim that he can't escape that. He spent however many years, 40 years or so, like switching sides, betraying people. And when he gets a taste of his own medicine, it's not a good outcome for him. And when he tries to sort of get back on someone that's done the same to him, he doesn't have the strength to do so. So I think that's a good choice for the writers to have Jim still loyal to Flameheart, but almost not through his own will.
Kind of have to disagree a little bit, because when you read the second journal, the one that's where Flameheart's burial site was,
Hmm.
you actually read that he's fully embracing the curse, and that's, I think, after he drank, but before he's a real Ashen Lord, and he really seems to embrace the power that comes with it. And I feel that he's fully on board through his own accord, like he's convinced himself that this is the right way to go forward. So that's how I look at it.
Would you argue, though, that's not Flameheart and the Servant sort of seeing that part of his character where he wants power and he wants knowledge, and they're using that as a way to sort of worm their way into his being? Because that's what Flameheart
Yeah.
did to Harry Hartley, didn't he?
Well, how do you see that then?
What, in terms of,
Because Hari also wanted to side with Flameheart, who is a character from the novel, by the way, for people who are confused.
well, didn't want necessarily to side with Flameheart. He agreed with his dogma, but also wanted the power to overthrow him. So it's not so much that he's idolizing Flameheart as a person, but his ideology, but also his power. But he wants that power to be his own person, if that makes sense. Because he has the
Mm.
dreams of using the ancient weapon to strike down Ramsay and Flameheart, and that comes from the place where, when he was a kid, he was bullied by his mum and dad really for misbehaving, and that's his insecurity sort of manifesting in that lust for power and control.
Mm.
And Flameheart's preyed on that by making him an Ashen Lord. And you see in the book that Flameheart knows he's not going to create something that can destroy him, is he? But he's a tool to Flameheart to essentially survive the coming fight against the Ophelia.
Mm. So let me ask you this then. Do you feel they became an Ashen Lord the same way, or is the lore different for Jim and Hari?
So we don't really know what happens when Harry goes to visit Flameheart and he pledges his allegiance to him. Obviously, he puts his hand in the chest of rage because he burns his hand. But I am under the impression that Flameheart has a chalice there that he can drink from to complete
Mm.
the process.
Yes.
And he originally planned for Jim to do that, but he escaped for a time. So the servant sent on the mission to make sure he has a little sip and completes his transformation. But that chalice is special, I think. Um, I
Well,
don't.
it looked like an hourglass at chalice, right?
It does, and it looks like an ancient artifact. And it's important to note that this chalice also pretty much confirms, as well as the book, that it's not the chalice that turns you; it's the water that you drink. And I
Mm.
think we're both in agreement with that, aren't we?
Well, I go back and forth on it, to be honest.
Hang on, bear with me 1 second.
Sure.
I will prove it to you right now.
All
I've got the receipts.
right. All right.
Here we go. So this is from the chapter Goodbye to the Sun for Tales from the Sea of Thieves. And to give
All
you
right.
guys context, this is Flameheart Jr., or the Servant as we know him now. Silverblade's gone, and they washed up on this unknown island, and this is shortly before he meets the captain. So, shamefully, I lost the precious parchment as we fumbled through the darkness, only to rediscover it floating in a carved basin of the sweetest water. To my delight, a golden chalice lay discarded at the base, my first treasure. Passed the cup around, drinking greedily, though even now it feels as full as ever. We take turns supping as we journey on. So the chalice is described as golden, and that's completely different to the one we see in the Tall Tale, in the adventure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. I mean, I always use that source as well to if for believing it was the liquid instead of the chalice. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure it's the liquid.
Yeah, it does make sense, but it does makes you wonder why it looks so much like an hourglass, and we've seen that symbolism on the sails and with the reapers all throughout.
Yeah, I guess we'll find out more about the chalice,
Mm.
that specific chalice, as the story goes on.
But we can assume that Harry also drank, right, from the same liquid.
I assume, yeah, I assume that's the case.
But Harry didn't need a chest of rage with souls inside it.
Maybe the souls are used to make the Herald of the Flame and not an Ashen Lord.
Good point. Yeah, that's a good point because it's different, right? Because after Heart of Fire, Tall Tale, we got the update with the Ashen Lords, right?
The Heart of Fire, yeah, so it would have been in August 2020, so it was after that.
Yeah, and the lore behind that is that they were in waiting and that rituals awoke them, right?
Yeah, so we don't exactly know what that ritual was to revive them, but they seem to be sucked in from either the sky. But I think it's Captain Grimm, it's one of the two male Ashen Lords, says they were getting bored down there. So I don't know what down there means, but yeah, there's some sort of ritual that we don't know that goes on to revive the Ashen Lords.
Okay. Yeah, because when you go to an Ashen Lords event, isn't there just a big pile of bones?
Yeah, and there's a tornado, and it looks like it's sucking something from Falcor theory. That his theory was the shroud because of how old Horatio burnt so brightly he parted the shroud, and he thinks he merged with it there. But it's also implied down there, so maybe
Hmm.
you can just perform this ritual on that pile of bones, and it will resurrect them.
Yeah, that's how I saw it. I just saw it like skeletons. They knew where the Ashen Lords were located, and they're encased in this pile of bones,
Hmm.
and they performed this ritual to summon them again. That's how I interpreted it.
Yeah, that's what.
And they chose to slumber themselves after the defeat of Flameheart, to be ready for his inevitable return.
Well, what old Horatio did, we don't know what happens to Red Roof and what's her face, Warden Chi. But obviously, Grim was killed by Pendragon, wasn't he?
Yeah, but wait, was Grim killed by Pendragon? Is that the? Comic.
Yes, it's in the comic. I believe it's the
So,
second one.
so what happens then? He just dies because we fight him later, right?
Who? Captain Grimm.
Yeah.
Well, Pendragon kills him with the Sword of Souls, so I assume that releases his soul, but obviously we know that doesn't mean a whole lot in Sea of Thieves.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess if he's in the Sea of the Damned and they know about the binding ritual, he can still come back, can't he?
Yeah, he can, but the ferryman won't let him. So
Well,
how did that
it's
happen?
implied that Flameheart did that. He bound his remains to his soul. Sorry, he bound his soul to his remains to avoid the
Oh,
ferryman.
okay, gotcha.
And we know Ashen Lords get the power to do that when they partake in whatever ritual creates them Ashen Lords. They get the knowledge of
Mm,
Flameheart.
gotcha. Yeah, gotcha. And that's really important too because we read that in the third novel in this adventure as well. That drinking from the chalice allowed Jim to gain the knowledge of an Ashen Lord as well.
It's interesting how it's not just power that makes the Ashen Lords dangerous, but the knowledge as well. I think it really
Hmm.
speaks to sort of Flameheart's cunning, and it's alluded to in the book about how much he knows about arcane rituals. And it seems to imply he doesn't know a lot about the ancients because he couldn't conceive that a weapon could kill him or anyone could kill him. But he does have this almost sort of profound understanding of how the Sea of Thieves works,
Hmm.
which he never
Yeah.
really divulges to anyone else.
Mm. Do you think he gained that knowledge when he became a skeleton as well?
Yeah, I think that's the case. We have that chapter in one of the books from Lost Sands where Junior really emphasizes that playing your cards close to your chest is power in itself, and feel like the whole thing about Flameheart embracing his curse was not just the power that it comes with, but the knowledge of the Sea of Thieves. Because for all intents and purposes, he's quite an intelligent character, isn't he?
Yes, I would say so. Yeah.
For as arrogant as he is, he still makes the plan to bind his. How inconceivable that someone can destroy him. He still has a backup plan. He still has a backup plan to ensure that
Mhm.
doesn't happen. Um, but yeah, I digress.
Yeah, and he's really good in consolidating his power and spreading it outward and having different plans to take over. I think he's smart. Yeah, he should. He certainly is.
It's just a shame we have to discuss this on a podcast to really hit it home, like the idiosyncrasies of Flameheart's power. But in the game, he's like floating head, summon ship, can't
Yeah,
come
it's
back from
easy.
the dead.
Yeah, it's easy to ridicule him. That's true. I guess
Yeah.
so. Yeah, but I guess it's also easy to ridicule the pirate lord, right?
If you read the books, yes, but if you just play the game, no.
It seems like we're talking nice about the lore of this adventure. Anything
hmm
you want to talk about Jim? Some more?
I really liked in I really liked in the fight when he goes down and he's flailing around between phases. He's still begging for his master to save him, just like Stitcher Jim is.
Oh, I did not even notice that.
Yeah, and if you watched my video as well, I don't expect you to blabber the crap. Um,
I already knew that.
yeah, exactly. He begs for his master to save him, and Flameheart activates the volcano to take the heat off of him.
Oh, so that was it. I thought
Yeah.
it was Jim himself that summoned the volcano.
No, it's Flameheart because when he gets back up, obviously other than the final phase, the volcano stops because Jim's back in action then, and that
Ah,
coincides with him begging for the master to save him.
gotcha. Nice touch either way. I
Mm.
really like that we
The
got some more of it.
the
Yeah, the Phantoms as
details,
well appearing as well makes it different compared to another Ashen Lord fight.
yes, the details in this adventure are really good if you look into them.
Yeah, well, if you don't blink.
If you do, yeah, but those are the details I like.
Yeah, I totally agree with that as well. I really liked there was a lot of callback, not only to the Heart of Fire tall tale and the Seabound Soul tall tale, but also to Jim's past. Like we get
Yes.
the mention of Redbone and how he came to the Sea of Thieves. He even mentions the Pirate Lord and him not liking the Pirate Lord.
hmm
And let's not forget he locked himself away in a gold ore vault because he was a gold order. He was one of the founding members of the gold orders. So that I think that's how he knew how to get inside that vault and stay there for a while.
Do you want me to really like cherry on top that little bit of lore?
Yeah, go for it.
So back when Haunted Shores came out, Flameheart was obviously amassing his forces and summoning
Mm-hmm.
the Ghost Fleet. So the lore of Vaults of the Ancients, the September update of that year, is that the Gold Hoarders fear Flameheart's return. So they use these secret gold vaults to stop him getting a hold of the treasure.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a nice little callback because that obviously suggests that the Reapers don't know where these gold vaults are.
Exactly.
So
Yep.
Jim also would you choose that as a safe house because he knew the servant couldn't find him there. That's some very clever storytelling.
I was one of my favorite elements of the story, by the way, seeing him in that vault, and I like the little puzzle as well.
Don't think I've ever been to the Ashen Reaches vault before that.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we grinded a little bit.
I think they were all at Flintlock or whatever it was. Well, it's not Flintlock. It's the one north of it, Fetcher's Rest.
Yeah, that one is not all that great unless you have a rowboat. Yeah,
Yeah, I
lot
think
lot of ferrying that one if you try to do vaults.
I'm sure we had 3 Fetcher's Rest ones, but yeah, besides the point.
Yep, and then we rushed it all for Gold Rush as well.
We did.
One other character, like we talked about Jim, but Pendragon is also a big part of this story. How do you feel about Pendragon in this adventure?
Yeah, it's nice to see him sort of atoning for his mistakes and helping us out. And it makes sense for him to help us out on this adventure rather than Belle or the Pirate Lord because they don't have so much as the emotional connection with Jim.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. I mean, some people were disappointed that Moro did not make an appearance. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, so it would have been a good way to introduce Grace as or reintroduce her as part of the Athena's fortune or allies with the Pirate Lord, but it's a bit of a sorely missed opportunity unless they're saving her for Jim's final comeuppance where she gets her revenge on him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would be cool because we both believe this is not the end of Jim, right?
Oh, absolutely not. He's definitely
Yeah.
coming back.
It was some confusion about that in the comments I saw. Like a lot of people missed that not only Flameheart's remains were gone, but also Jim was nowhere to be found. So he's certainly up and about still. I do hope we do see more of him, yeah,
I agree,
and
yeah.
get a better boss fight out of it as well.
Well, we'll be waiting a very long time for that, so let's not hope.
You think so? It will be a long time before we see Jim again.
Oh, we'll see Jim again, but getting a new boss fight is a very long way off.
Oh, okay. Oh, no, okay. Yeah, yeah. So what do you think? He'll be another Ashen Lord, just like the other before, or what?
I think we've had our boss fight with him. I think he's going to become more like the Servant of the Flame.
Okay, that would be interesting because the Reapers really need some characters on their side.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Like maybe they could scale him down or make him look all damaged or turn him into a ghost, maybe like a red ghost. That'd be interesting.
Yeah, maybe. I do want to fight him again. Um, I just want to fight him. Like maybe not as a reskin of an Ashen Lord, just like the other Ashen Lords, but I don't know. Maybe at the end of a Fort of Fortune, like you always get Jim if you do a Fort of Fortune, something like that.
That's what they should have done with him anyway.
Yeah. We'll talk a bit about the gameplay in a bit. I just want to touch upon Pendragon real quick. I really like him. It's one of my favorite characters. He could have done a little bit more, but I like his arc. Like he's trying to make amends. Sad that it doesn't work, but I like that Bell was cheering him up at that moment. Kind of reminded me. I also said it in my review. It also reminded me of Bell supporting Merrick in fighting for Golden Sands.
hmm
So I think that's a nice touch of Bell's character as well.
She seems to do a lot of that, doesn't she? Cheering people on. Like
She does it to us too, to be fair.
it's like you've done excellent, Belle. Oh, you've literally been sat in this dusty cave for 2 years. What are you doing?
That's her magical power, just supporting other people
I
and
see.
not using her boy. But oh well.
I've seen some people call Belle and Mary Sue, but I'm like, one, she hasn't done really anything that is like
No, she's like Lorena, only not at Outpost.
exactly, yeah. And the other thing is, she's failed plenty of times. I think she's failed more than she's succeeded.
Let's see. When did she fail?
Shrouded
First
Islands,
Adventures, yeah,
Forts of the
for sure.
Forgotten.
Y- Forza Forgot. We did rescue everybody, right? How did she fail? Well, because of Forza appeared, right? Is that what you mean?
Well, I see it more so that she's one step behind with the veil,
Mm-hmm.
and she asks
Mm-hmm.
Merrick for help. She gets a win with Shrouded Deep.
Yes, and also in the Athena voyage where we recover a Veilstone.
That's more Ramsey, I think.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
What's the fourth adventure? Lost Sands, that's Merrick.
Yes,
What's fifth? Forsaken loses in Forsaken Hunter.
she does. That's
Yeah.
true. Yeah,
Hunter's
she
Cry,
loses.
Ramsey wins.
Uh huh.
And she does get a little bit of a win during Siren's Prize.
Yeah, I count that as a big win, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Nah, but I feel it's 50-50, to be fair. Yeah, but definitely not a Mary Sue. I would not call her a Mary Sue at all.
Yeah, definitely not.
I. Anything else you want to discuss about the lore of this adventure?
No, I think I've said my piece.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward, isn't it? This
Yes.
entire adventure as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No really big twists, no big reveals. Just going through the motions, but it's still good. It's still good. I really liked it. So from a gameplay perspective, did we like this adventure?
I'm in two minds, really. Personally, I really like using a lantern to look at flashbacks.
Mm-hmm.
It's better than just having people stand there and tell you what happened.
Yeah, I agree.
But
Yeah.
also, we've used that 5 times now in storytelling.
Hmm.
And we have a big
That's
old
true.
Sea of the Damned to make really vivid memories. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously, the nature of adventures means you can't really do that. Well, you can, but, not at the current pace we're going. But, like, using that storytelling in Pirate's Life in Captains of the Damned was really good, and it's great for creating fantastic environments. But instead, we just
Mm-hmm.
use the lantern and look at some short animations, or they're even just 3D models in some cases.
Yeah, I know, but I don't really blame them. Like, I feel I can put this in every review I write. Like, I like the visions, but they should have been animated. But you can't really expect them to do that in a month because you need to get actors in to act it out and get all the motion things on them and do that every month for every adventure. And when it's not good, you need to reschedule again and do it all over again, and I think it's a nightmare to plan all that stuff. So um that's how I look at it. I don't know if you feel different.
I don't know, like, this bleeds into the whole Tall Tales versus Adventures argument. Like, think how long it took for us to get story progression through the Tall Tales system. At least significant Tall Tale progression, but also adventures will just never beat the quality of Tall Tales due to the way they're made.
Mm-hmm.
And it's whether you choose to wait for your story and you get good
Mm.
quality story, or you have a less of a wait. And the game feels a bit more alive, but you're not waiting years to find out what happens with a character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So,
that's true. But I would also argue that there are a bunch of adventures that are better than some tall tales. So
ooh, that's a different argument for a different day, I think.
it is. It is.
Because I
And
think we disagree on that.
yeah, I mean, we originally planned to discuss the Tall Tales versus the Adventures argument in this podcast, especially because it seems like a follow-up to Heart of Fire, a follow-up to a Tall Tale.
Mhm.
But me and Ray decided to actually save this discussion and do it with the next podcast episode and really go in depth into this discussion.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because we'll be here all day otherwise.
indeed. And I still want to eat my dinner.
Exactly.
So back to the gameplay. The roar is also being calmed. Like lore wise, it's because the time of resurrection is close, and a sign of the resurrection being close is that the roar is calming down. But from a gameplay perspective, it's nice, and the newer players don't sink to the volcanoes. So how do you feel about the roar being calmed?
It's nice to visit there now. Like, as much as the Devil's Roar is there to provide a challenge, the
Mm-hmm.
challenge, or should I say tedium, does not outweigh the benefit of going there and the time it takes. So, can we keep it like this for a while? At least until Rare figures out how they're going to rebalance the Devil's Roar to make it attractive again? Because it's dead currently. No
Mm.
one goes there unless Even they killed Ash and Athena's with Legend of the Veil, didn't they?
I disagree, man. I really disagree. Like it's hard because I don't really go to the drawer all that often. But you don't need to go to the drawer all that often to appreciate it. It's like this little area that you visit every once in a while, and it does need to be harder because that's what drawer is all about. It's a harder area with more rewards. But I say this, but for us, that's not really true because I've spent some time in the Roar doing voyages, and the amount of gold you earn pales in comparison of doing world events in the normal region. So for players like us, it's not really that appealing. Like I do give you that. But I also don't think it needs to be the fourth region. It does need to be a little exclusive, like you don't visit there all the time. Plus, we have some new captaincy rewards that we both want to earn, and we need to visit the Roar for that. And I'm actually looking forward to do that. Yeah.
Maybe we should get in before this adventure ends.
Yeah, we should.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we definitely should. And then we can nick away the treasure in Molten Sands Fortress for all those people that still need to do the adventures.
Cruel. It's not. That's another thing. The treasure wasn't even worth it. We didn't even pick it up, did we?
That's true. I knew you were going to say that because I also agree with that. I saw people saying like the fight was too easy, but it needed to be easy so people could finish the adventure after each other. But I disagree with that because it's Sea of Thieves, and you want players to get together. That's part of the game, so you can work together if you want. I mean, the ending will be the same. Like it makes sense from a story perspective as well. Why more people would be drawn to prevent the Herald of the Flame. And even if you don't want to cooperate, like stealing treasure away from people is also part of Sea of Thieves.
As long as you, in the adventure sense, you let them finish up until the point where they can return to Bell and complete, then you can steal, just like Shrouded Ghost. Or Shrouded Deep,
Yeah.
sorry.
I guess I agree with that. And it would, yeah, it would be nice to, for example, you're an inexperienced player. You do the adventure. You are at the point at Herald of Flame and big boss battle. Somebody comes along and sinks you, finishes it for you. Like, can you come back to the fortress and finish the adventure then?
I don't know, because I think there's a trigger for Pendragon's animation where he destroys the skull again. So I think that needs to be completed before you can go back to Bell. And I think you need to talk to him as well, but I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, I think you need to interact with him, so he will be just standing there. Yeah, I think it will work, so it doesn't really matter if he gets sunk. But to be fair, we have not experienced this ourselves, because we don't sink, right?
No, we don't sink.
No, we don't sink, so we don't know this. Maybe somebody did. Please let us know in the comments. But let's talk about the elephant in the room. We've hinted at it a little bit. Was the final fight too easy?
Yes. God, yes. Yeah. You said I was whining about it when we played it, but I think I was justified in my complaints.
Yeah, you were. Like, I was disappointed as well, and I said so in my review. It's the biggest disappointment of this entire adventure. And again, because we waited so long to fight Jim, right? Like, I think it was no surprise that we were going to fight him, right? Like, everybody expected that, right?
They battered us over the head with it, so if you were shocked by that, I don't know what to tell you.
For us, he died where he spawned. And granted, we are used to fighting Ashen Lords. We got our Disney sticks. But still, he died where he spawned. And you went to the ship to check on the ship, when the volcano erupted. And when you got back, he was defeated. And that's really disappointing. So I made a poll on my channel and asked people, if it was too hard or too easy. 60% said, about 60% said it was too easy. And 40% said it was too hard. And I also got a lot of comments saying mainly solo players that thought it was too hard. So I can understand that. Maybe if you are a solo player, it's fine. It's a challenge. But anywhere up there for bigger crew size, they did not scale it at all. It's going to be super easy, and it's disappointing.
Yeah, and maybe he's weak to Disney sticks, but I don't think we finished a single one killing him, did we?
No. After we started with a Disney stick, and after that we were just slashing him.
Do you have the footage?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, put it on the screen when we're talking about this bit, because they'll be able to see, won't they? Those people on YouTube.
Yeah, it's segmented because I can only make clips of a minute or 2 minutes in Xbox.
Oh, I've got the full fight. I'll send it to you from my perspective.
All right, yeah, cool. I'll edit it in because you asked.
It's only a 2.5 minute clip. You can just shove it in there.
Wow, 2 minutes. 2 minutes. You hit a guy's three pies trying to defeat Nash Lord. 2 minutes. Oh
It was
well.
2 minutes, and it would have been shorter if I didn't have to check the ship.
Because
I was one of the people using the Disney stick.
So I want to start this discussion then, because we love Sea of Thieves, but they're not satisfying the longtime players with this. Do you agree?
Do you mean with this story, the boss fight?
No, with the boss fights, because we were waiting for it. Like the longtime fans were expecting a great battle, and we did not get it.
I think my biggest concern will always come from, and don't misconstrue my words here, is that Rare do sometimes have this problem when balancing PvE, that they just appeal to the lowest common denominator. And I'm not talking about people who are like differently abled and struggle to play games because of whatever disabilities they've got, but more so that you do have a large portion of the fan base that generally do find this difficult. Like, as a fresh player, if you don't understand the mechanics, this is going to be quite difficult for you. Or a solo player, like, it's tough to balance something like that where your PvE is very simple because the threat is PvP. That's how the game's designed. But also veteran players who also enjoy PvE like us, we want this cinematic boss fights. So if Flameheart ever became a boss fight, I don't think he would. Could they do it justice and make it feel like you're fighting the most powerful pirate to roam the seas that we know? I don't think they could.
See, exactly my point. So we as longtime players, we want these climaxes, but we're never gonna get it. We're never gonna get our climax if they keep this up.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, it's hard to envision a Sea of Thieves where the story's linear and there's a beginning and fixed end point, and that's just how it's gonna end. Like, it's gonna be a boss battle with Captain Flameheart, but the mechanics of the game, or let's say the captain or like the GMU, like, the game just doesn't support that fantastic set piece. They could, but it'll take a lot of dev resources. Like, imagine you fight Captain Flameheart on land and then he retreats and you have to fight the Burning Blade. How are they going to balance that to make it feel like you're fighting for the end of the Sea of Thieves? Because we saw this happen with, with Davy Jones and the Flying Dutchman in Lords of the Sea. For some reason, for us, we had this awesome, like, organ kick in with his theme, and the storm comes in, and you see the Dutchman, and you're like, we get to fight the Dutchman, and he goes down in a few cannonball hits, and you're like, this really soured Lords of the Sea for us at the time. Like, so I don't know. It's an aspect that's, I guess, limited. The game engine and the design limits how in depth your PvE can be.
It's hard because you cannot only cater to the older Sea Dogs because you want to draw in those new players as well. And because it's a monthly adventure, you can't make it hard because this might be their very first adventure.
To go on a tangent quickly, that's a really important thing you've brought up, but I think it makes sense in the context of the discussion point we're on. So adventures are made to draw a new player. They're made to draw in new players, sorry. So when they get announced, people download the game from Game Pass or buy it. I don't know who's doing that. On Steam, actually, you'd be doing that. Then when the trailer drops, the cinematic trailer, this looks cool, let's see what this is about. When the adventure drops, let's see what this is about. But you're a fresh player and you come in and you're like, yeah, you could understand what's going on with this one because it follows on from a tall tale. The next one, you're not going to understand at all. And then you get this live service that's appealing to new players, but the story is firmly for veteran players or even people who've been playing for the last year or two, not necessarily Sea Dogs like us who have been in since launch. And it's just like, you've got this story that appeals to us, but the gameplay is just too easy because we know all the mechanics and we know how to defeat these bosses.
Mm-hmm.
Sea of Thieves is a big problem at the moment where I think this is very apparent since when we introduced Fort of Fortune, is that we have this mechanical knowledge that we know what to expect and we know how to get around the design of the game, whereas new players won't. It's like when we
Yeah.
started at launch, we didn't know how to. Do you remember when Skull Forts came out and they were really difficult, even with a galleon, and people figured out you could trap all the skeletons and swords, like M1 spam them as they get stuck in the door? This sort of min-maxing of strat was a new thing back then, but as the game's into its 5th year now, we just recognise that, and Rare needs to bring in this thing where either you appeal to new players and make it easy, or you give the older players a chance. And you can't even like add a difficulty setting. They need to add something that's fresh for everyone. But like you say, adventures can't do that.
Well, I do have some ideas actually how to improve it, but I do want to quickly mention that it's not just the strategies that we learn as older players, but also with the volcano as well. Like, we know those rocks will hit our ship at that point. New players don't know that. They think, oh wow, the volcano is exploding. They've not seen it because the roar is dormant at this moment, and they think, oh, that's a nice visual effect. Then they die, and they suddenly spawn on a different island because their ship sunk without them knowing it.
I will say this though, in both times I've played it, once solo to get some footage for the video and with you guys, the ship wasn't hit once. Even when I played solo, it never got hit by the volcano.
Okay.
And the last phase is a lot longer when you're solo. So I don't know if they've tuned it to be less frequent or it just doesn't hit them because they're again appealing to new players. I'm not sure.
Maybe. They did dial it down before, right? Because volcanoes, or rocks, I should say, used to be really accurate when the roar was introduced. And now they really scaled it down. Now you can sail past a volcano. Yeah, occasionally you get hit, but you can make it out without getting hit. And you could not do that when it was just introduced.
The issue of the volcanoes was never so much the ability for them to hit your ship, is that they were like heat-seeking missiles, and it just made the Devil's Roar unplayable for those first, month, I think it was, before they nerfed it.
Yeah, it was harsh.
Especially, like, it would target your rowboat as well, which was just ludicrous. Like, you'd be rowing in, oh, volcanoes erupted, it's fine, my ship's not here, smashed by a big rock. Rowboat's gone, and you don't have a rowboat anymore, so I think they can overtune sometimes, but, that's a different argument.
So now I want to tell you how I would improve it, actually. Because in my review I said, all right, just make it difficult for larger crew sizes, because I assume newer players are just going to solo sloop it, right? So just make it easy for solo slooping and just crank it up with more players. That is a solution, but then I thought, why not tie it to experience instead of size? And how would you tie it to experience? How can you measure that? And I thought, well, make it harder for Pirate Legends. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. It's a good idea as well, but when you say harder, do you mean like change the aggression, change the attacks, or just put a massive health pool on it?
I think Jim could have been improved with a bit more health and a bit more spawning around the map. I don't know how you feel about it.
So when I fought him solo, I thought he was a bit more aggressive than normal Ashen Lords, but it's just happened once, and that could be a placebo. And also, when you fight Ashen Lords as a group, you can kite them and you can distract them, and they don't target one person. So
yeah, that's true.
It's hard to actually, I don't really fight Ashen Lords all that much anymore solo because we play as a crew. But yeah, like, do you know what really would have made it just, I guess, a bit more difficult if we tuned it for Pyro Legends? Is like maybe change the volcano accuracy, or make Jim more aggressive, or make him more likely to summon phantoms. Something like that would go a long way. Because I know we don't like the whole attack like mobs and stuff, but any sort of depth you can add to that boss fight would be a welcome change, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Yeah. All right. So, well, hopefully they tweak it a little bit for the next adventures, but I don't think they will, sadly.
No, I don't think so either.
Oh, such a downer.
it's not so much a downer, but we have to understand how Rare designs their games and what we expect as people who've been through the ringer for the last 4 years and understand how PvE works in this game. It's sad, but we can give our feedback as much as we want, but it hasn't changed for the last 4 years, has it?
Yeah, well, they listen to some and they ignore the rest.
Yeah, they do. But if we're still talking about certain talking points for several years, then I think it's safe to say the chance of things changing is very unlikely.
Yeah, that's true. I really hope they implement my Pirate Legend difficulty option.
Or even just opt in, start adventure normal,
yeah.
start adventure Pirate Legend brackets more difficult. Just simple as that. But that require testing and balancing and etc. etc. Game development stuff.
We know nothing about that. Anything else you want to tell about the adventure before we go to the messages?
No, we've covered it all. We've covered it in very much depth because I can't shut up is all.
Well, I purposely I did leave some topics out that are going to be asked in the messages. So there you go. So let's go to the messages in a bottle. And this is a segment of the podcast where our listeners can send in their own questions and we answer them. So if you want to send your own questions, you can join the Salty Hippo Discord. Link will be in the YouTube description for that. First question comes from Thrumsu. In Herald of the Flame, isn't Jim having the chest of rage outside the lair while his arm is burning a giant plot hole? Jim left the chest in Heart of Fire and we brought it to Pendragon, who destroyed it. It also seems that in the memory, Jim brought the chest outside the lair and then put his hand in there. It is hard to explain without redoing this part while thinking this. This confused me. Did you notice this? Am I missing something? So is it a plot hole, Jim bringing the chest outside in that memory?
Knowing Thrumsu and how he doesn't like it when people have to explain things for Rare, which I agree with, you can sort of apply a little bit of guesswork to it. So we see that memory at the start of him talking to the chest with the spirits in there. That's obviously before he puts his hand in, before he even goes to the Herald of the Flame.
Makes total sense. Yeah.
And then when he comes out, he's escaped and he's burnt his hand. But what I assumes happened, instead of instead of Pendragon destroying the chest with the Sword of Souls, he just opens it with it and leaves it there.
But he didn't.
He didn't, but for gameplay reasons, it disappears because it's a tall tale item, isn't it? So the way I see it is I keep saying Flameheart. Jim's come out of Heart of Fire. His arms burn and he's washed up because he's like on the beach where we were. The chest is there shortly afterwards from when Pendragon's opened it. I don't think he's brought the chest with him. I think that's what that's meant to represent.
Yeah, maybe. Like the chest, because we recently did the Heart of Fire Telltale, and the chest explodes in particles, and it's very similar to how Flameheart's skull explodes in particles. So you could see that as the same magic that the sword is doing. So that's how I interpreted it. And because of that, I do feel it's a plot hole. Yeah.
I think also it's hard to... It happened 2.5 years ago, so obviously there's been some rewrites and some changes and how they want to tell this story. I also think there's sometimes gameplay points that you just can't sort of get round. Like they would have to animate the chest opening and leaving on the shore for a plot point that they don't even know how they're going to follow up clearly for 2.5 years. Because at least they definitely hadn't started to make the next Tall Tale after that, had they? After Heart of Fire.
Well, maybe they did. We don't know.
It just ends so abruptly, and I think at that point, they have a firm release date for Pirate's Life, so they probably put the brakes on the Flameheart storyline and would come back to it.
Okay. I always imagined they had a story for the next Telltale after that.
I imagine they did, but things change and development's always like a flexible process, isn't it?
Yeah.
With Captain C, that was meant to be the first update, didn't come out till this year, so you know how Rare operates.
That's true. Still waiting to sell out of the hideout.
And lantern customization as well.
Yeah. Wait, was that promised, lantern customization?
No, it was just a good idea for it, is all.
Maybe we'll still get it. I do hope so.
I think we will. Maybe next year.
Also, like, even though I agree this is a plot hole, I really don't mind, because it's a nice refreshment for the Heart of Fire event.
Yeah, I think it's a plot hole in the sense that the gameplay was never designed around the plot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Thrumsu's very good at picking up these little details, so he's
He
obviously
is.
doing his job properly, and it shouldn't be our job to explain these things.
Should be Mike's.
Yeah,
Mike
Mike,
Chapman's.
Mike, if you're listening, come back on the podcast, answer for your crimes, Mike.
Anyways, thanks for the question, Thrumsu. I hope this answer satisfies you. Next question comes from Ewash, Herald of the Flame podcast question. Are you guys happy with the adventures at the moment? We've waited so long for the sequel to Heart of Fire, and it's a pretty weak time-limited event. The writing seems a bit subpar compared to what we used to. Jim's arc from hating to serving Flameheart happened so quickly, and the ending felt really abrupt. A triumphant moment followed by another wait for next month ending. So, how do you feel about this? How do you say this dynamic of this adventure?
Yeah, I think Ewalsh has some very valid concerns, and I've discussed it with him over Discord, like in DMs and stuff. And we did touch upon it at the start of the podcast, or at least I did, and adventures seem to be doing good numbers for Rare because they're continuing on doing them, and they're full steam ahead. And we did have a little bit of a delay, but that was because of a seasonal delay, whether that was anything to do with the cadence of adventures. But I have seen, I think since Hunter's Cry, this discourse has evolved, and that was a catalyst for it, into adventures are something to be excited about, to adventures are a negative thing that's impacting the game. And I think you've probably seen that over social media and in YouTube comments. And yeah, and sort of linking it back to Ewalsh's question, it's the narrative is getting a bit frustrating for myself, and I brought it up in the video that I'm really fed up of things. Yeah, the heroes win, but they don't, and actually in the end of the arc they do win as always. And we've been waiting for, you can say, Tales from the Sea of Thieves or Dark Relics or Heart of Fire. We want this emotional payoff with Flameheart coming back. It's been teased for so long, and it's just always pulled away from us. Like at the last second, it's wait for next month, it might actually happen. And it doesn't help after we had that 3-4 month break with Lost Sands to Hunter's Cry, where we sort of got taken out of that really sort of evolving story, and it was getting very exciting to have the rug pulled, and we have to build that up again. And I think it's going to happen at the end of this arc as well. I think it's going to be Flameheart arc, variety arc, Flameheart arc, variety arc, depending on how the story goes. And yeah, it's frustrating, and I think, yeah, I don't want to say anyone's writing is lazy, but I do think the dynamic is very different to how Sea of Thieves' story was told before A Pirate's Life. How do you feel about that, Blubber?
Oh, I actually really like how the adventure is set up. I can't get enough of it. Like each month we get a new story chapter. I love it. And to touch upon the wait till next month, that's what I expected, because this is not the finale. Like, can you imagine Flameheart being resurrected in the Herald of the Flame tall tale? Like, what would the finale be? Like, how do you follow up Flameheart's resurrection? Like, you can't. So I never expected that. So I always expected it. You know, Flameheart's resurrection or whatever they plan, something big, I always expect that to be in the finale. So there you go.
I think a problem with that is not so much that I don't think anyone expected it to happen in this tall tale, but we go from defeating the Herald as soon as he appears and us destroying Flameheart's remains again, and then it's just undone with like a little line right at the end of the adventure. Just cut the whole winning thing out, but I don't think Rare knows how to let us lose. Like, say we had a massive boss fight against Flameheart, or let's say it's an adventure, and he's got the Burning Blade back, and at the end of that adventure we have to fight him, and he just sinks us in one shot, and and that progresses the adventure. That's way better storytelling than saying, you did it, but you didn't. Just say you didn't do it from the start.
Yeah, that's
true. It's okay
true.
for us to fail for the narrative to be good.
Yeah. No, you're totally right. I do agree with that. It would have been better if we didn't defeat Jim, or he just crawled back and escaped with the remains, or the other Ashen Lords make an appearance and they're like, "We're here to back you up, Jim. Like, they're not gonna get away with this." And then you were bound to lose the battle. You could not win it. Like, you would still get some loot out of it or whatever, but story-wise, it ended on a downer. And now, indeed, we have some lines that say, "Wait for next month." It's just, yeah, no, it's a good argument, and I do agree with it. Yeah.
How I would have done it is completely the tall tale. Oh, sorry, I keep saying tall tale. The small tale is Christ. The adventure is the same as it is, but right at the end, when you come to Jim's last boss fight, his last phase in his boss fight, have him like almost like burst into flames, and then he reforms behind that fiery aura with Flameheart's body. Do whatever he's doing to set up the next adventure in front of us when we can't get in. And then Pendragon do the whole "what have we done" like he did in Seabound Soul. Because the Seabound Soul, that bit, with Flameheart coming back, and if you're a lore fan and you played that adventure, Christ, that Tall Tale, see that? Stick to one name. You played that story mission. And if you knew who Flameheart is, you're like, oh shit, that is such a cool ending. And the stakes have raised. But like I said, when you go, oh, we did it and we didn't, it makes that didn't moment just really sour. Yeah. Rare, please stop doing it. Just if we need to lose, just cut the crap and we'll lose. I can lose for the narrative. I know we're immortal pirates and the ferryman is our Deus Ex Machina or whatever you call it. But yeah, just how what's the word? Is it Forsaken Hunter? Hello?
Yeah, no, I'm just listening to you.
Yeah, like Forsaken Hunter, we can't do anything about Merrick because he's in a portal. So yeah, that's the end of my point.
All right, well, that's great. Like it gives us things to think about for sure. Yeah, good point for discussion. So thanks for that question, Ilwash. The next one comes from Firebird. If Jim rebuilds Flameheart's skeleton by hand, is there a possibility he would make his own skeleton servants too? I'm going to take this one first. I say no, because the skeletons still need a soul. Like, you just can't stitch bones together and expect them to walk around unless you have some souls ready and waiting for that, as isn't the case with Flameheart. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I agree. You need souls to do it. It'd be interesting to see that dynamic, though, after this arc ends, that if he does survive, he's doing that in the Reaper's hideout where he's creating those like Reaper's pets and things like that.
I wonder if he can stitch multiple arms to the same skeleton and have a soul possess it, so you have a unique skeleton type.
That would be cool, wouldn't it?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, just a thought that popped up. Yeah,
he could outfit skeleton parts to his Ashen Lord skeleton and create the ultimate weapon, but cannon on his arm.
Yeah, for example.
Yeah, something like that, or stitch another skeleton on his back, and like the art book, there's two skeletons and he can hit us from behind as well.
See, that would be cool. Yeah, that would be really cool. But we don't think he will make his skeleton servants. No, they will just pop out of the ground like they always do. Next question is from Captain Jägner. Do you think there is a plan for the future regarding Jim and his new form? Or did we just kill an important character permanently in this silly adventure? I'd love to know what you think about it. So we touched upon this before. Jim is going to get back. Pendragon said so. Jim is gone. Jim is going to get back. How he is coming back, I don't know. I just hope we get a cool fight out of it.
Yeah, I agree completely.
And like you said, like, it would not be a bad idea to have another compelling character, a more fleshed out character on the Reaper's side, and Jim could fulfill that function.
Yeah, the rogue gallery is certainly lacking at the moment. It's just the servant doing all the heavy lifting, bless him, and us.
Yeah, and let's be fair, Jim is more interesting than the servant at this point.
Yeah, shame about Flameheart Jr., isn't it? Hopefully he gets more development.
Yeah, I'm really disappointed with him. He just, again, his voice too, like, just, he comes across as an edgelord. And I'm not saying that to look down on the Reapers, but he's just a big edgelord at the moment, and I'm a bit disappointed by that.
The servant needs to do some cool stuff. Like, kill Wanda would be a good one, like he says he's going to do.
Yeah, and he needs to show some more complexity as well. Yeah, you agree with that, right?
Yeah, he should ditch the mask and get his own outfit, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Next question comes from Gunnar. If Flameheart's resurrection is part of some prophecy, could he be more closely tied to the ancients and their magics, or do you think he is just psychotically self-absorbed?
It seems like he is tied to the ancients. We just don't really know how.
Mm-hmm.
And this prophecy is not his own prophecy or Jim's; it's an ancient one. So
It's true, just written down by Jim.
They seem very specific as well. Well, we know they know about him because of their dreams, and their dreams tell the future. Well, they know of Flameheart, but not what Flameheart is.
Yes, which is weird. Like, can you imagine them writing the prophecies down and, oh, who's this Flameheart guy? That's a weird name. Flameheart.
It's a skeleton with fire in his chest, and his ship has a dragon on it. Nah, throw this one away, everyone. This can't be real. Right. Yeah, I hope we get a payoff for that in the next adventure, or at least soon, because that was introduced at the start of this arc.
Yeah, and we know from Mike that there is a connection between Flameheart and the Warrior. It's just not as big as we think it is.
Yes,
which we're still a little disappointed about, and we try not to let it show.
It might be bigger than Mike really let on. He didn't say it was big as what we thought, or maybe he said it wasn't what we thought to the extent, but it could be an interesting way to add that sort of extra depth to Flameheart.
Yeah, we will see. We will see what happens with that. But thanks for the question. And the final question comes from Jark. How will Flameheart resurrect himself next adventure without a skull? Will it be rebuilt? Will he find a new skull? Will Ray ever give me a capstan?
So I'll take that last part first. No. Will it be rebuilt? Maybe.
But wouldn't that be lame? Wouldn't that just be resetting everything again? Like Jim falling back, the skull gets destroyed and rebuilt, and destroyed and then rebuilt again. That's so lame if that would happen.
Seems a weird plot device to have to rely on the skull being intact. Like, can't they make him a new body?
I think they can. And my personal theory is that they use the skull of the Great Warrior.
That's a good idea.
And we see, and I've told you this before, it makes sense from a thematic level as well. Because in the first adventure, we rebuilt, like we got 3 pieces of the skull of the warrior, and we rebuilt that skull. In the second adventure, Jim rebuilds Flameheart's skull. So it's like poetry. It rhymes.
All right, George. Thanks.
I just wanted to say it on the podcast.
I think the sticking point for me is that it's established in the book that Duke's brought back as a skeleton, or he was a skeleton, and he gets destroyed in the explosion, and he finds himself on the ferry, and then he gets a brand new body because the ferryman wishes it so. Why does Flameheart need another body when he's in the Sea of the Damned? Can he just come back?
Yeah, that's a good one. Well, he does need the permission of the ferryman is involved, right? So you do need permission of the ferryman, right? And Flameheart is not getting that.
I suppose that's because the ferryman wills it, but if the ferryman has the power to do that, then surely Flameheart can find out a way to do that without his body. Maybe the veil allowed him to do that.
Maybe.
Come to think of it, why does he want the veil anyway if he's doing this? This has nothing to do with the veil stones.
Well, it comes back to the, or original argument that he's really smart and he just throws out a lot of lines. That's how I see it.
What do you mean, sorry?
Well, he throws out a lot of lines to catch fish, like a lot of plans.
Oh, right. He's got plan B, plan C, plan D,
yeah.
plan E.
Aye.
That just makes him unfeasibly broken then.
Yeah.
If he doesn't get resurrected, he just moves on to another plan.
Yeah.
That means it's really easy to come back from the dead, unless people are wishing for that not to happen. Well,
eventually all his plans are done, right?
Yeah. So I guess, but I think what's really interesting as well, if he's a prophecy, then surely it's inevitable that he comes back.
Yes. I agree, unless the prophecy is misread.
True, but, Herald of the Flame, time of resurrection, it's pretty on the nose, isn't it?
All right. But to answer Jark's question, like I've submitted my theory of the warrior skull. But what do you think?
He could always find another skull. I like Blubber's theory. There's plenty of other sort of people that could lend a skull, or there's other ways that he can come back without his body. It would be really bad storytelling if he just gets a new skull, or he finds another way around it when the whole point of Herald of the Flame was to destroy his remains again.
Mm-hmm.
But considering his remains and Jim's remains are gone, there's a contingency plan already in place here, isn't there?
Yeah.
They do fixate on both their remains are gone, which makes me interested if they'll make a hybrid. Like
maybe
they'll make I suppose Flameheart's body's intact, but what if they make almost put pieces of Jim onto Flameheart, like his arms and his legs and what have you?
Yeah, and he'll be this bigger skeleton than we saw in the trailers, right?
Yeah,
more imposing skeleton. Yeah,
or maybe he'll be like a Franken Flameheart, and he gets partially resurrected, but he's not fully in action yet. He needs to be rebuilt fully.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be interesting.
Maybe
it would mean he's back, but it wouldn't explain why he's not out kicking ass.
Aye. Well, we can speculate forever and ever, Jark. Hopefully, we give you something to think about. But like I said before, the good thing is we don't have to wait all that long, because the beginning of next month, we will know the answer to these questions. I just hope it makes sense.
Same here.
And that was the final question. So thanks again to those that submitted their questions, and make sure to join the Salty Happy Discord if you want to submit your own. I almost always post an announcement when we are close to recording a new episode. I also want to remind our listeners that this podcast is also on Spotify and Amazon Music, so if that's more convenient for you, you can listen to us there. Keep in mind that new episodes premiere on YouTube first and will be on Spotify and Amazon a few days later. And you can also follow us on Twitter at BestCOT Podcast. Link to that will be in the description. So we've come to the end of the podcast. I want to thank my wonderful co-host for being amazing. And can you tell our listeners where they can find your content?
Of course. So you can find me on YouTube. So just search AShinyRay. Should be the top search result. I worked hard for that. And you can also find me on Twitter at AShinyRayquaza. If you ever want to talk, just tweet me or drop me a DM. I tend to reply to everyone, unless you're like trying to get me to invest in crypto or something. I do reply to those.
So if you want a capstan, make sure to DM AShinyRay.
No, they're working for their capstan in the next decision. I'll tell you that much. And and a mystery prize if you fight for the Reapers.
All right. I wish I could bribe people like you do. So please remember to subscribe to Captain Blubber so I can be a partner and bribe other people as well. So that's it. Thanks for listening. Have fun on the seas and steal some treasure.
Take care, guys.